and I work for the Broadland Authority National Park here in Norfolk in the UK. We're located in the east of England and are one of a unique waterway habitats. My role within the Broadland Authority is the Head of Construction, Maintenance and Environment. It's a very varied and wide-ranging role with particular responsibilities for organising teams of operatives to complete a wide range of tasks, practical and conservation tasks. I'm also responsible for all the work sites and also for coordinating volunteer activity within the Broads. Projects undertaken are aimed at improving and maintaining recreational navigation facilities and to cater for access for all, and also to ensure and enhance nature conservation and preserving the landscape within the Broads. We do this in a number of ways with a number of different teams. So I'm responsible for the dredging of the Broads, certainly for the habitat creation along the lines of reed and marsh swamp, but also for educating and giving lectures and talks to various people and groups to try and share some of the beauty, but also some of the issues facing the Broads. To that end, I'd like to thank Dorothy for inviting me to come and talk to you today. And my interesting subject is on the Water Framework Directive. I've tweaked the talk a little bit to make it a little bit more pertinent to what we do here in the Broads. And hopefully through my presentation later on, you'll understand why. But Water Framework Directive is actually quite a large subject. So if you'll bear with me, I'll try this my best as I can. This is my first Google Hangout chat. I hope I'm doing it correctly. And I'm now going to attempt to share my screen with you so you can actually see the presentation that I'm talking about. So let's have a go. And in true tradition, my presentation isn't there. Here it is. Okay, great. So welcome. And I'm happy to present to you the implementation of the EU Water Framework Directive within the Broadland catchment, so river catchment. I hope to be able to talk to you today about identifying water framework challenges, identifying the catchment area and explaining its geography and relation within the United Kingdom, identify physical sources which are causing the WFD to fail within the catchment, explain some of the actions that we're taking to make improvements, give further advice to demonstrate that partnership working is key to change, highlight some key projects that the Broad Authority is leading on, and try to end on a high note because it's not all positive. This slide is divided up into four topics: issues, why, the benefits, and how. So let's firstly discuss the issue. Well, to put it in a nutshell, in the UK, we need to improve the quality of the rivers, the streams, lakes, estuaries, and coastal water and groundwater. Why? Well, it's a sad state of affairs, but only 27% of English water bodies are currently classified as having good status. There are lots of benefits for improving the Water Framework Directive objectives, mainly safeguarding jobs, improving natural habitats, improving ecosystems, and also the general ecology of the area. And how? Well, in 2000, the EU Directive 2000/60/EC was established. It was called the Framework for Community Action in the Field Water Policy, or Water Framework Policy, better known to us as the WFD. In the United Kingdom, which is shown here on this small slide, we deliver the Water Directive Framework, the Water Framework Directive, through river basin management. There is one plan for each river basin. There are 11 river basin districts in England and Wales, and the Broads National Park actually falls into the Anglia region, which is here, if you can follow my cursor. It's one of the largest catchment areas, and I will talk to you later on about the geology and how the catchment actually works. This map shows you the catchment. It shows you the tidal limits, major settlements, roads and rivers all impacting upon the catchment into the Broads National Park. So the Broads National Park encompasses the River Thurne, the Bure, the Waveney, the Chet, It runs through Norwich to Lowestoft and also to Great Yarmouth. It's quite a large geographical area with a lot of water, and also the major city of Norwich, which is the sort of capital of East Anglia. It shows the location of the Anglia River Basin and the geological closeness of the Broads National Park to the sea. So this is the North Sea. So far over here is the Hook of Holland, and this is where water comes in via tides at Great Yarmouth and also Lowestoft, although that Lowestoft is controlled by a sluice gate. So the Broads are tidal, and with tidal surge events happening at higher frequencies, salt incursion into the freshwater system is increasing. The freshwater mixing with salt is creating a brackish habitat in some of the Broads and shallow lakes. Fish refuge areas have been created, and some agencies are talking about the construction of a tidal barrier. But high economical costs and blocking of the navigation are a few of the major stumbling blocks preventing this ambitious project moving forward. The angling catchment is very low lying. Its highest elevations are to the northwest, so up here, about 100 meters above sea level. The rainfall in the regions is relatively low, although recent climate change has meant periods of heavy rainfall, which has caused problems with flooding as the water bounces off the dry, parched surface and then actually shoots and floods into the drainage system. And you can see from the catchment here that we start off in the northwest here as being 100 meters above sea level. As you move towards the coast, you'll see that the majority of the land is very low lying, and at times -3 meters below sea level. The geology to the west is gravel, sand and silt, and as you move towards the east, it becomes more peaty. And in particular, if you were to look up the history of the Broads, which are our shallow lakes around these areas, they were actually formed by ancient Britons digging peat for fire and for building materials. And then at some point in our early history, there was a sea level rise, and these peat diggings flooded, creating these shallow lakes, which eventually linked via the river system. As we will agree, our water environment is in a very precarious state, and I don't think that's just wholly for the UK. I think that's across the world. Despite much investment and significant improvements in water quality with less nutrient pollution over the last 30 years, this map here shows that our rivers in the Anglian River Basement catchment are moderate to poor. There have been some significant areas of improvement, particularly with sewage treatment and less nutrients bleaching from the land. But the Water Framework Directive in 2015 states that the rivers within the Broadland area should be, 9% should be in a favourable to good standard, and 28% of lakes should also be at a good standard. We are failing this target currently. There are a number of challenges facing the catchment. The Broads is low-lying, and it is located at the bottom of the catchment area, so it's heavily affected by upstream events, as well as tidal surges from the North Sea. This slide shows some of the key issues affecting the Water Framework Directive within our basin. Issues like pollution from the towns and cities, natural flows from the North Sea, and runoff from intensive farming are some of the highlights of what is actually causing the failure within our water bodies. To change the status of our water bodies, we have implemented a number of actions. We have the River Basement Management Plan. This has been published by the Environment Agency, and it outlines the work that a range of organisations are undertaking to assist in improving Water Framework Directive. Water Company Business Plan. We're quite lucky in the Anglian River Basement Management Plan because all of our public sewage is actually provided by one water company, Anglian Water. So it's produced an action plan and also promised a level of investment which will maintain and improve sewage systems with the aim of further reducing nutrient release on land and also subsequently into the water. And then there's the Broads Authority. So this is where I come in. We have a 5-year strategic management plan, which is due for renewal in 2016. So it's coming towards the end. It's going to be tweaked to take into consideration new learnings on climate change, for instance. This is a sustainable plan which looks to the rivers and broads and tries to tackle some of the issues. It includes a range of organisations and community groups, because we're very much featuring on working in partnership and also sharing our resources. So one of the major events happening within the UK economy is austerity measures, and the Broads Authority is funded in 2 very distinct ways. We receive a government grant from DEFRA, which is the Department of Agriculture and Farm, and also we get toll payer money. So people who are using the Broads to sail or to boat have to pay technically a tax. We then use that money to go back into the system to improve navigation, moorings, and footpaths in and around the national park. So that's 3 actions, but that's not enough in itself. So we also have further actions and policies. So there's the land management. This is built up of several agronomists and land advisors. They work across the catchment, particularly assisting farmers to comply with good agricultural and environmental conditions, which is this, good agriculture and environmental conditions, GAEC. And it's designed to strengthen the EU legislation that is already out there. We also have catchment sensitive farming. This is a partnership between Natural England, which is a government advisory body, and the Environment Agency, which is a government body with a little more leaning towards practical works. They work to reduce pollution from agriculture and delivers practical solutions and targeted support. And then there's finally there's the environmental stewardship. This uses local government funding to pay landowners to preserve or improve landscape, wildlife and access. And they are given a range of tools and support to help them deliver solutions and small projects which will help landscape and also habitat creation and the wider ecology on agricultural land. This is a little bit more about what the Broads specifically does with the view to Water Framework Directive. So one of our key things is to maintain the navigational waters. And to do this, we have to remove over 50,000 cubic meters of sediment a year from over 124 miles of navigational waters. The 50,000 cubes sounds fairly ambitious, but if you consider that about another 25,000 washes in from the sea or off the land from erosion, so we are constantly fighting a losing battle trying to maintain the Broads navigation because it wants to silt up. The rivers are generally slow flowing, they widen, they narrow, and the sediment can drop out on bends as they meander their way through to the sea. We also have the non-native invasive species plan, which was launched in 2008. This is to promote prevention, control, eradication of invasive and alien species. Partners collate and monitor data on the distribution and spread of invasive species and help to control and develop eradication programs. And then we have fish barrier and the fish barrier plan. So there's over 150 fish barriers within the catchment which have been assessed or removed or bypassed. Eels have suffered a huge decline since the 1990s, and under the eels regulation, any water intake would have to be screened and structures made passable. This is a direct impact of the EU Water Framework Directive. So to draw this small presentation to conclusion, and I'm appreciating that I've only ever touched upon a small flavour of some of the Water Framework Directive issues. But management of land and water has evolved in a piecemeal fashion over the centuries and occurs in specific sectors with regional, county or district boundaries that do not reflect the natural boundaries of a catchment. In some circumstances, the planning of improvements to the water ecosystem has failed to make use of the knowledge of those who live and work in the catchment. to sustain long-term solutions linking rural development, flood risk management and environmental stewardship funding around hydrological boundaries is, in my opinion, required. By working together, we can make the necessary leaps and bounds needed to improve the environment, provide benefits to society, and strengthen the local economy. I trust that has answered or even raised a few questions with you. I believe through this process there is a system where you can send questions directly to me online, and I think that Dorothy will be publishing a list of speakers and contact email addresses. I'm more than happy to talk to anybody about the work that the Broads are doing within their catchment, particularly any projects that you may have seen on our websites to do with PRISMA, which was a European funded scheme, or dredging and habitat creation as a whole. I trust this has been a good first attempt at Google, and I hope, that this presentation has helped some of you understand some of the things that are happening in Norfolk. I'm now going to play it back and keep my fingers crossed that I've done it correctly. Thanks very much. Goodbye.